Hello and welcome back to Miss French Teaches Something. Today we're going to be talking about word problems. Uh, Today's lesson is for parents and teachers. I'm making this lesson uh, so you can learn about word problems and how I like to break them down in my classroom. By the end of this lesson, you should know the cubes method, how to use a K and S chart, and how to use different strategies to solve word problems. So let's talk about the cubes method first. Cubes is an acronym that stands for circle the numbers, underline the question, box the important words, eliminate any information that's not helpful, and then solve the problem. K and S stands for what do we know, what do we need to know? And then how are we going to solve the problem? I'm going to go over a really quick example of how I would do this in the classroom. So I like to color code things. Um, so I'll start with circle. When I introduce a word problem, I'll read the problem to them. Miss French has 5 rubber ducks. She gets 2 more. How many does she have in all? And then we'll circle the numbers and I'll ask the kids what the numbers are. And we'll find that the numbers are 5 and 2. And then the next part is underline. We're going to underline the question. And I tell them start at the question mark and go backwards to the capital letter. So our question is, how many does she have in all? The next step is to box important words. This is where it can get a little tricky because sometimes the words don't always mean one thing. Sometimes when we see the word more, it might mean adding, it might mean subtracting. So when you introduce this to the students, you've got to let them know that the words can sometimes mean different things. You've got to really look at what's happening in the word problem. Our important words, our key words here are more and in all. When you're in kindergarten and for most of first, these words typically mean that we're going to add or put things together. The next step is to eliminate any information that's not helpful. Luckily, in this problem's straightforward. There's nothing that's not helpful. Usually, that information is any extra numbers um, or extra actions that won't help us solve the question. And then the last part is solve. So we know that we're working with the numbers 5 and 2. Our question is how many does she have in all? Our important words are more and in all. So we know, and in my class we would talk about if I'm getting more ducks and I'm asking how many do I have in all or all together, what do you think that means? And we'd come to the conclusion that we should be adding. So now that we've written and marked up our word problem, now it's time to go and talk about organizing our thoughts. First off, what do we know? What do we know about this problem? Well, we know that I have 5 to begin with. And then we know that I get 2. So I fill in this information. That's what we know. That's what we know that we're working with. What do we need to know? We need to know how many in all. So I write that out for the kids. And eventually, I try to get it so they're filling this out by themselves. And that could be, my higher kids in a small group. Um, or, once we've moved on from whole group instruction of this. So we need to know how many in all. and I'm just going to write how many. Now, if you remember from the last video, we talked about different ways to write numbers, which led into different ways to solve basic problems. That's where we get this part. This is where I have the kids um, start to think about, well, what are some strategies I know that I can use to solve this problem? Miss French has 5 and she gets 2 more. How many in all? And this is where the kids might even be working with manipulatives at their desk or a whiteboard and marker, drawing out how they would solve this problem. Some of them might just be thinking it in their head. Either way, ask them to show you how they know, to prove it, uh, whether it's with words or with manipulatives or on a whiteboard. So, how would we solve this problem? This is where I would call on kids randomly. So and so, how did you solve it? And we might get, well, I used a number line. So on the board, I would draw out a number line. And then I would have the kids uh, walk me through it once I have the number line drawn out. Okay, you used a number line. How did you use a number line? What number did you start on? Why did you start on that number? This gets them used to explaining their ideas because on math tests, whether that's um, the FSA or a district test or um, just even the math book test, they will sometimes have to explain how they know their answer. So while you're busy writing your number line or however they said to solve the problem on the board, have them explain to you how they got the numbers, how they knew what to do. They'll tell you that they started on 5 because that was the number we annotated in the problem. And they jumped 2 times because that was the other number in the problem. It said we started with 5 and we got 2 more. And then I'll ask them, well, what number did we land on? And they'll tell me 7. Um, and then I'll find another student, thank you, so and so. So and so, how did you solve it? And they might tell me that they solved it a different way. They might say a picture, they started with 5. And while you're drawing it out, ask them, well, how did you know 5? Why did you use this strategy? And then they'll tell you that they added 2. And again, where'd you get that number from? Why are you using this strategy? Um, and then you ask them, well, how many did you find in all? And this is giving all the kids different ways to solve problems. So when it comes to those tests, they don't have just one way to solve a problem. They have a bunch of different ways to solve problems in their back pocket. Uh, this also gets you talking about choosing a good method. I once had a student on a test. She had a bigger number, like 23 plus 13, try to draw 23 little dots and then 13 more dots. And, we had to have a discussion. Well, is that the best strategy to use for this? Is that the best method? Is that going to help you solve the problem quickly? And the answer was no, it wouldn't. So this gives all the kids a chance to think about different strategies for solving problems. It also helps break down word problems so they're a little less intimidating. It is a little easier when you know, oh, I'm working with the numbers 5 and 2. And after looking at the question and the important words, I know that I'm going to add those 2 numbers together. This is just a very basic word problem that I would use um, end of kindergarten, beginning of first. Uh, but this strategy, the K&S chart, the cube method, can be used for any word problem that you have. Um, thank you guys so much for joining us. Next time, I am going to make a video that's more geared towards reading. I really appreciate you joining me, and I hope you have a good day.